Hey everyone, welcome to my channel where the strange, the unexplained, and the downright creepy come to life. From real-life encounters with the paranormal to bizarre, true stories that'll keep you up at night, I bring you the eerie tales you won't hear anywhere else. If you're into late-night chills, mysterious happenings, and things that go bump in the night, you're in the right place. Subscribe, buckle up, and let's dive into the unknown. Where are you from? Let's go back to the day I inherited Gran's house. That was the day I stopped sleeping. I'm Samantha Reed, 5th grade teacher by profession, skeptic by nature. I traded a cozy Boston apartment for a crumbling colonial buried in the woods of Maine after Gran passed last fall. She always called it the Hollow Hearth, a name that sounded more like a warning than a memory. The will left everything to me, the last blood. It read. No one blinked at that phrase. Except me. I should have walked away. I didn't. The house is 3 stories tall, timber-framed, and older than the American Revolution. The floorboards moan like they remember every footstep. The wallpaper peels in tendrils, like something trying to escape. The windows are warped and fogged. None open without a fight. It sits on a plot the locals call Thresher's Grove. I thought it sounded pastoral, until the hardware store clerk whispered, "You're not really moving in there, are you?" That was my second warning. I ignored the first. That night I dreamed of fire, real fire. Walls melting, voices screaming. A woman sobbing in the corner. When I woke, there were scratches down my arms. I blamed the cat I didn't own. Told myself it was the mattress springs or my own restless limbs. Then I heard the whispers, soft, like breath against glass. "Tethered," they said. She tried. A week later, I found the journals. They were hidden beneath a loose floorboard in Gran's room, bound with red twine and sealed with wax. Her handwriting spiraled into frantic loops, the kind you see in crime scenes and conspiracy boards. She wrote of a seance in 1938, of something called the Tethered One. She said it latched onto her that night and never left. "I keep it bound with salt, string, and will," she wrote. "It waits for the blood to thin. Then it will pass." I thought she'd gone mad, until something moved through the house that night. I heard footsteps on the stairs, but no one was home. When I flipped on the lights, they flickered, then died. A coldness swept through the room, like breath on my neck. Then the voice again, only louder now. Hoarse. "Close. You are the key." The next day, Father Matt appeared at my doorstep. I hadn't called him. "Your grandmother contacted me weekly," he said. "She asked me to bless the house. I never got the chance." When I let him in, he paused at the threshold, sniffed the air and frowned. "This place remembers," he muttered. He didn't stay for tea. By the second week, I stopped denying what was happening. Objects moved on their own. The grandfather clock chimed at 3:33 a.m. every night. Sometimes, I'd wake in the attic, curled around a book I hadn't touched. Always, there was fire in my dreams. Gran's last journal entry was dated 2 days before she died. If you're reading this, it's too late. It's in you now. I started locking doors inside the house, bedrooms, bathrooms, even closets. It made no difference. Every morning, I found them wide open. No sign of forced entry. No footprints in the dust. Just mine. Still, the whispers came. "Samantha, Samantha," always outside the door, always when I was alone. My students began to notice. I wore long sleeves to hide the scratches, layered on makeup to mask the shadows under my eyes. But kids sense what adults don't. "You look like a ghost," one girl said at recess. I laughed it off. But later that day, I found a piece of notebook paper tucked into my bag. It followed you from the fire. None of my students claimed it. None had handwriting that shaky. The whispers changed. They no longer just said my name. "He cheated," they hissed one night. "The man you loved." I froze. My ex had left a year ago, quietly and cruelly. But I'd told no one. The next night, "Your mother lied." She knew. Knew what? They didn't answer. Just sobs. Deep, broken cries echoing through the walls. Too loud to be only in my head. The dreams became unbearable. Always fire. Always someone screaming my name behind a locked door. Sometimes I saw Gran, younger, terrified. Other times, I saw myself, bound to a chair in a blackened room, eyes rolled back, hands tied in twine. Each time, I woke with ash on my pillow. My lungs burned like I'd inhaled smoke. I called Father Matt. "It's not just the house," I told him. "It's me. It's inside me." He didn't argue. Instead, he asked if I still had the journals. I did. He came that evening with salt, a silver crucifix, and a canvas bag. He wouldn't touch anything in the house. Not the doorknobs, not the furniture, not even the journals. "This is older than your grandmother," he said. "Something ancient, bound by blood and belief." We read the entries together. His lips tightened as he scanned them. "She tried to trap it," he murmured. "She stayed here to keep it from spreading. But now she's gone." He trailed off and opened a worn letter hidden between the pages. It was addressed to me, Gran's unmistakable script. "Samantha, my curse is your inheritance. It lives in the bloodline. It waited. Now it has you." He read the final line aloud. "It doesn't want the house. It wants you to finish what I could not." That night I didn't sleep. The walls pulsed like lungs. My reflection in the bathroom mirror moved before I did. When I whispered, "Who are you?" Into the dark, the answer came. Not from the air, but from inside my own skull. "I am the one tethered to your soul." I set up a camera by my bed, motion activated, pointed directly at me. The next morning I watched the footage. At exactly 3:33 a.m., I sat bolt upright. My eyes were open, unblinking, staring for 20 minutes before lying back down. But that wasn't what made me drop the camera. Behind me stood a shape, tall, shadowy, head tilted, watching me sleep. I called out of work, drove straight to the church. Father Matt watched the footage with me. He made the sign of the cross before it even ended. "This isn't possession," he said. "It's resonance. You're vibrating with something old, something that should never touch flesh." He pulled an old book from his shelf. Yellowed pages, faded ink. "It doesn't just haunt," he said. "It binds. It becomes the host." We agreed on a plan. A ritual, not quite an exorcism, but close. But first, we needed more information. "It feeds on lineage," he said. "We need to know where it began." I returned home with a list of names. Great-grandmothers, distant cousins, women I'd never met but shared blood with. I noticed a pattern. Early deaths, madness, disappearances. All women. All around 30. I had just turned 29. The house changed as my birthday approached. It began breathing. The walls pulsed with rhythm. I heard my name whispered in dozens of voices. Children. Old men. Someone who sounded just like Gran. One night, all the mirrors turned black. Not shattered. Just black. Obsidian. I touched one. It burned me. A spiral blistered on my palm. The same symbol from the journals. I found a locked drawer in Gran's room I'd never noticed. Inside, a letter, sealed with wax. To the last. "If you're reading this, you've heard it by now," it said. "It told me to end it. I wouldn't, so it stayed. Waiting. It wants a vessel. You." Beneath the letter was a ceremonial dagger, iron and bone, engraved with the spiral. The final line chilled me most. That night, I dreamed of fire again. Only this time, I was the one starting it. My hands, soaked in blood, held the dagger as flames devoured the walls. A voice screamed behind me, "Do it now, before it anchors." I woke standing in the attic, the dagger clutched in my hand. No memory of getting there, only the sound of something breathing in the dark. Then the whisper, "Almost time, Samantha." The next day, Father Matt returned. He looked gaunt, older, as if this thing was draining him too. "We do it tomorrow," he said, "before the new moon, before it completes the tether." I asked what would happen if we failed. He didn't answer. Father Matt handed me a candle etched with the spiral and whispered, "Whatever you do, don't listen when it pretends to be someone you love." The day of the ritual, the sky hung low and gray, pressing down on the house like a warning. Father Matt arrived before sunset, his hands trembling as he carried a wooden case filled with oils, relics, and a crucifix wrapped in linen. "We begin at nightfall," he said, setting candles in a circle around the attic. At the center, he drew the spiral symbol in chalk, right where I'd found myself standing night after night without memory of getting there. "This is where the tether is thinnest," he explained, "where it reaches through." He began chanting before the last light left the trees, a mix of Latin prayers and Old German incantations. I sat cross-legged inside the circle, holding the dagger. The iron was cold against my skin, vibrating faintly like it could sense what was coming. He poured salt in thick lines across the attic floor and carefully placed faded photographs of my ancestors around the chalk spiral. "These are the anchors," he said. "It's used your bloodline as a chain. We sever it here." At first, nothing but the low drone of prayer and the occasional groan of the house. Then the attic light died. Every candle flared, blindingly bright. A wind rose from nowhere, flinging dust and ash in wild circles. "Don't move," Father Matt shouted. "No matter what it shows you." A scream tore through the room, not from outside, but beneath the floorboards. A child's scream, then another. The floor vibrated. The edges of the photographs began to blacken. I gripped the dagger tighter as a chill slid up my spine. Then I saw her, Gran, standing at the edge of the salt circle, smiling gently. "You don't have to do this, Sammy," she said softly. "It won't hurt you, not if you let it stay. It just wants a home." I almost stepped forward. Almost. But then her smile twitched too wide, her eyes too dark. "You're not her," I whispered. It shifted then. "Gran. My mother. My ex." Their faces melting into each other. Familiar voices pleading. "Please," it begged. "It's just fear. Let it pass." My hands shook. I wanted to believe it. Father Matt threw holy water across the floor, shouting louder. "You must finish the line, Samantha. Cut the tether now." The salt ignited like gunpowder. A ring of fire flared around the spiral. The thing screamed, an inhuman, deafening shriek that seemed to burst inside my skull. The temperature dropped. I could see my breath. The spiral bled. Not figuratively. Blood seeped from the floorboards, thick and dark. My hands moved without command, lifting the dagger. I could feel it inside me now, something ancient, slithering behind my ribs. "Let me stay," it whispered. "You are mine. You were always mine." Father Matt reached for me, but the entity flung him back. He slammed into the wall and collapsed. Blood pooled beneath his head. Then the thing laughed, through my mouth. "One soul for another. That's the price." Something in me snapped. I saw Gran again, truly her this time. Tears in her eyes. "Be stronger than I was," she seemed to say. I gripped the dagger. "You can't have me," I whispered, and I struck. The blade pierced the center of the spiral. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the house roared. The walls buckled. Dust and splinters rained down like hail. Fire streaked across the chalk lines, rushing outward like veins. Inside me, something tore loose, like a knot snapping violently. White-hot pain seared through my chest. "Samantha!" Father Matt's voice rang out, weak but insistent. He was trying to sit up, blood staining his collar. "Finish the words. Seal it." My throat burned, but I forced out the words from Gran's final journal. The unfinished incantation. Each syllable felt like swallowing glass. The entity screamed from inside me, fighting every word, clawing to stay tethered. The attic filled with shadows, swirling into faces. My ancestors, twisted in pain, eyes hollow, arms outstretched. I kept chanting. Tears streamed down my face as my body convulsed under the weight of something unholy. It hissed from deep within. "You belong to me. You are the last." I drove the dagger deeper. The spiral exploded with fire. Heat licked up my arms. The boards cracked. The thing howled, dragged toward the spiral as if by gravity. It twisted into a shape I can't describe, Flames and shadow and screaming faces bound into one writhing mass. "I will return," it snarled, its voice fractured into a dozen tones. Then it vanished, pulled through the bleeding spiral in a burst of fire. And just like that, it was gone. The flames died. The air stilled. Smoke curled lazily upward through a hole in the center of the attic. I could breathe again. The whispers were silent. The weight in my chest lifted. My body shook uncontrollably. But I was free. I crawled to Father Matt. His breath was shallow, but he was alive. He gave me a faint smile, his eyes glassy with pain and relief. "It's done," he whispered. "You did it." But his smile faded as his eyes drifted toward the scorched floor. "The price," he murmured, voice trailing off. I looked down at my hands, bloodied, blistered from the flames, but they were still mine. The ritual had worked, but not without cost. Father Matt's strength was fading. His sacrifice had become the final anchor needed to bind the entity. "I couldn't let it take you," he rasped. "You were meant to break the chain." I held his hand as the last of his life slipped away. The house was quiet now. No more breathing walls. No more phantom footsteps. Just me, sitting beside a dying priest in a place that had claimed generations of my blood. The attic floor, blackened and split, would forever bear the spiral's mark. A scar burned into the house, and into me. I left the next morning with only the clothes on my back, a battered journal, and the dagger wrapped in a cloth singed at the edges. The attic reeked of ash and burnt wood. The ritual circle still radiated heat, like an old wound that refused to close. I didn't say goodbye. Not to the walls. Not to the rooms. Not to the memories. I locked the door behind me, though part of me knew no lock could keep what lingered inside from getting out. At the edge of the property, beneath the old oak, I buried Father Matt beside a small, weathered stone marked only with Grand's initials. I didn't say anything holy, just something real. "Thank you," I whispered, "for saving me, for ending it." The wind rustled the leaves gently. No more howling, no more voices. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid of silence. I moved into a small apartment above a bakery in town. Plain walls, no creaks, no history. At night, I kept the journal locked in the drawer beside my bed. I should have burned it, but I couldn't. It was proof, a testament, a reminder that it hadn't all been a dream. Sometimes, I'd wake in the middle of the night feeling something watching, just past the edge of sleep. But by morning, it always faded. Weeks passed. I returned to teaching. The kids didn't ask where I'd been, except for one. Leela, a quiet girl who handed me a drawing of myself surrounded by flames. "It's the monster you sent away," she said with a small smile. I didn't ask how she knew. I just folded the picture and tucked it into my desk drawer next to the journal. One night, sitting on the fire escape with a mug of tea, I felt it, a soft tug in my chest. Not evil, just familiar. I thought of the women who came before me, each carrying a burden they never asked for. I thought of Gran, who died trying to contain it. And I understood. Survival isn't the end of the story. It's a beginning, quieter one. One where you live with what you've seen and keep it from ever coming back. 3 weeks after I left, the house was condemned. Fire damage, structural instability, the report said. They boarded the windows, posted warning signs, but people still drove by, took pictures. Some said they heard voices at night, whispers, crying, a name being called. But it wasn't mine anymore. The entity was gone, exorcised. But something remained, burned into the bones of that place. I never went back. I never will. Whatever lingers there belongs to the past. I stepped out of it, scarred but standing. I kept the dagger locked away, just in case. A reminder. The darkest things we face are often born within us. And breaking a curse takes more than courage. It takes choice. I chose to live. Getting out of bed was hard enough most days, let alone filing a police report I was sure wouldn't be taken seriously. Still rattled, I crumpled up the note and tossed it. But strangely, I did pack a lunch that day. I usually didn't bother, cafeteria food was easier if not good. but something about the message nudged me to follow it. That afternoon, the cafeteria was closed. A fridge had failed overnight, spoiling dozens of frozen meals. Management shut it all down for the day. A chill crept up my spine. The note had predicted it. The messages kept coming over the following weeks. Always on sticky notes. Always in the same unfamiliar, loopy handwriting. They appeared in obvious places. My fridge, my bathroom mirror, my desk. And they grew eerily accurate. Take I-80 today. There will be an accident on your normal route. Janet will offer you cookies. Politely decline, they'll give you food poisoning. Marie has been dieting. Compliment her. She'll think well of you. Naturally, I tested them. Every time I ignored a note, I paid for it. Declining to bring an umbrella on a sunny forecasted day? I got drenched in a freak evening downpour. I had so many questions. Who was leaving them? Why were they helping me? I left notes of my own in reply. No response. I spoke out loud, half joking, half hopeful. Nothing. Once, I returned home early unannounced, hoping to catch the culprit in the act. I installed hidden cameras throughout my apartment. The next day, I found them all on the kitchen table, their insides torn out. Next to them was a single sticky note. Never do that again. The notes stopped after that, and I missed them, more than I expected. Over the past few months, they'd improved my life. I'd become more social, more respected at work. My managers actually listened to me. I was on track for a promotion. The notes had shaped me into someone I liked, someone others liked. It sounds crazy, but I'd come to see them not just as guidance, but as a friend, a guardian. Without them, the world suddenly felt unpredictable, unsafe. Every little inconvenience, bad traffic, paper cuts, awkward conversations, made me think, would this have happened if I still had the notes? Then one morning, a bright green sticky note appeared on my bathroom mirror. Don't forget to call Mom today. It's her birthday. I nearly cried. I gave up the investigation. I accepted things for what they were. And slowly, the fog I'd been living in began to lift. My confidence returned. I cleaned my apartment. I cracked jokes. I even started dating, something I hadn't done in years. Her name was Amanda. We met at a pub while I was out with friends. She was way out of my league, gorgeous, with long auburn hair and soft brown eyes. She wore lemon-scented perfume, and her laugh made everything feel lighter. She was the kind of person you could talk to for hours without running out of things to say. I tried not to plan a future just yet. The relationship was still new, but she made it hard not to dream. I thought about telling her. About the notes. I'd never told anyone, mostly because there was no one to tell. But I held back. Too soon, I told myself. What if she thought I was insane? Besides, what if sharing it made the notes stop again? Amanda loved cooking. And one Saturday she invited me over for what she promised would be the best spaghetti you've ever had. I was excited. It would be my first time visiting her house. That evening, humming as I got ready, I went downstairs to grab my keys. A hot pink sticky note was waiting on the counter. Kill your girlfriend. My brain froze. I read it again and again. The words didn't change, but my mind rejected them. I set the note down, nauseated, heart pounding. I got in my car and drove, trying to ignore the words spinning in my head like a broken carousel. Kill your girlfriend. The notes had never lied. They'd only ever helped me. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe it wasn't literal. Maybe kill was metaphorical, like end the relationship. That had to be it, right? I kept making excuses all the way there. By the time I pulled up to Amanda's house, I was a sweaty mess. As I flipped down the sun visor to check my reflection, something fluttered out. A bright green sticky note. It landed on my lap. The notes had never appeared outside my apartment before. My hands trembled as I picked up the note. Kill Amanda. Take the gun from your glove box and shoot her. I stared at the glove box, my mouth dry. I did keep a handgun in there for emergencies, for safety. But this wasn't safety. This was madness. I wanted to be sick. I told myself it was a mistake. A joke. A delusion. Anything but real. Trying to steady my nerves, I ignored the note and walked up to Amanda's house. The words still spinning in my head like a broken record. Kill Amanda. She answered the door almost immediately, bright and smiling. Hey, what's up? Her smile vanished as soon as she saw my face. Are you okay, Gary? What's wrong? Nothing, I lied, forcing a crooked smile. Actually, I think I've got a bit of a stomach ache. Oh no! Come in, she said, ushering me inside, visibly worried. Her house was warm and cozy, decorated with care. She fussed over me like I was made of glass, leading me to the kitchen table and holding my hand gently. If you're not feeling up to spaghetti, we can do it another time, she said. Don't worry about it. Want me to grab you something for your stomach? She was so kind, so sincere. My guilt twisted like a knife. No, it's fine, sweetie. I probably just haven't eaten much today. I was looking forward to your spaghetti all week. Her face lit up again. That smile, I loved how easily it returned. Well then, Mr. Hungry, let me get you a bowl. As she disappeared into the kitchen, I sank into the chair and shoved my hands into my pockets, trying to calm down. I felt something, paper. My heart sank. I pulled out the note. Take your chair and bash your head in. Panic surged through me. I crumpled the paper and stuffed it back. But there was more. My left pocket held 2 more notes, crinkled together. Against every instinct screaming, don't, I opened the first one. Do not eat the spaghetti. Drugged. My stomach turned. What's that? Amanda's voice came from behind me, startling me so badly I nearly leapt out of the chair. Oh, just some work notes I forgot were in my pocket, I said, too quickly, too stiffly. She frowned, like she didn't quite believe me, but didn't press. Here, babe, she said gently, handing me a steaming bowl of spaghetti. It looked perfect. It smelled incredible, but all I could think about was poison. She sat down beside me, resting her chin in her hands and smiling expectantly. Well, take a bite, silly. I'm so sorry. I really need to use your bathroom. I bolted out of the kitchen without waiting for a response. She followed me, confused and concerned. Gary? What's going on? You've been acting so strange. I found the bathroom, stepped inside, and locked the door. She kept knocking gently at first, then louder. Gary? Is it that bad? Please talk to me. I slid down the wall, heart pounding. I pulled the last note from my pocket, the one I hadn't dared read yet. She is not Amanda. This time, the scratching was louder, deliberate, as if whatever lurked behind the wall wanted to be heard. My pulse surged. Grabbing a flashlight, heart pounding, I crept upstairs to the bedroom and pressed my ear against the wall. Silence. Just like that, it was gone. Back at my desk, I stared at the blank canvas, unable to focus. I should have been sketching, but my thoughts spiraled. Something about Mr. Doyle kept returning to me. His smile lingered a beat too long, his voice too calm. It gnawed at me the way an itch burrows under skin. The next evening, while rearranging art supplies in my bedroom, movement outside the window caught my eye. Mr. Doyle stood in his yard, unmoving, watching my house. Not looking, watching. His expression was blank, his gaze locked on my window. I ducked out of sight, skin prickling. That wasn't a neighborly glance. That was surveillance. The next day, I left the house just to breathe. When I came home that evening, the stillness inside felt wrong, hollow. My footsteps echoed louder than usual. Something had changed. Then I smelled it. A faint burnt scent, ashy and sharp. Following it led me to the kitchen, where I noticed a thin, jagged crack behind the fridge. Subtle but new. I was certain of it. I reached out, fingertips brushing the uneven plaster. A cold shiver slid down my spine. Plumbing issue, maybe, or settling. That's what I told myself. That night, the scratching returned. Louder, urgent. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The wall wasn't just a structure. It was breathing with secrets. My house didn't feel like mine. It felt like a trap. With a flashlight in one hand and fear in the other, I stayed up listening. Music blared in my headphones, but the scratching broke through. Steady, rhythmic. A pulse. A countdown. I stared at the crack in the wall. An invitation. I got the crowbar. Each strike of metal against plaster echoed like thunder. Sweat dripped from my brow as chunks of wall crumbled to the floor. When I finally broke through, I froze. Behind the drywall was a narrow crawl space running between my townhouse and Mr. Doyle's. Empty. First. Then I saw it. A tiny black lens, half hidden in the shadows, aimed directly at me. Camera. My stomach lurched. Panic took over. I ripped more of the wall down, reaching into the void with trembling fingers until I felt something brittle. Paper. I pulled it out. Newspaper clippings. Dozens. Yellowed with age. Each one chronicled a woman who had vanished from the neighborhood in the 1980s. Meticulously arranged. Some had handwritten notes scrawled in the margins. It hit me all at once. Mr. Doyle wasn't just an old man next door. He had been watching me. Watching them. Living in plain sight. A predator with a garden and a tray of cookies. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. My hands trembled, covered in dust and ink. I wanted to run. But where? He was right next door. He had eyes in my walls. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Even though I was alone, his presence bled through the drywall. Quiet, patient, unblinking. I held the clippings in my hands, heart thundering. I had to do something. But what? Confronting him was out of the question. And what if the police didn't believe me? No, I needed proof. Hard, undeniable evidence. The next morning I called in sick. My voice shook as I made the call. Then I started planning. The tension in the house was unbearable. I kept hearing noises. Footsteps in the hall when no one was there. The faint hum of something electrical inside the walls. Felt like I was being hunted. A chill swept over me as I stood by the window, watching the slow, rhythmic sway of Mr. Doyle's curtains next door. He was in there. I could feel his eyes on me. I had to act fast. I couldn't face this alone. The idea of going to the police felt like a gamble. What if they laughed it off? What if they found nothing? I was unraveling, but one thing was certain. I couldn't let him hurt anyone else. The women who had disappeared. The way he had hidden in plain sight for years. It was too much to ignore. I kept thinking about the crawl space, the narrow passage connecting our two homes. If I could get in there again, maybe I'd find something to prove what he was. Something undeniable. I needed help. Real help. I scrolled through my contacts until I landed on a name. Jessie. An old friend from college. Investigative journalist. Sharp, relentless. She'd know what to do. My fingers hesitated over the screen. Then I typed, "I need your help. Something's wrong with my neighbor. I think he's been hiding in my walls." Her reply came almost instantly. "I'm on my way." It was the first shred of hope I'd felt in days. But even as I responded, a gut-wrenching thought hit me. What if he already knew? What if he'd been watching all along? Jessie arrived that afternoon. She walked in like she already knew the house was a crime scene. No pleasantries, no pity, just focus. I told her everything. The noises, the crawl space, the clippings. She listened, eyes sharp, fingers tapping notes on her phone. "I've seen this kind of thing before," she said quietly. "But the more I hear, the more I think we're dealing with something much darker." The walls felt tighter then, smaller. "What do we do?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "We go into his house," she said. "If he's been hiding in your walls, there has to be evidence. Something solid to take to the police." I looked out at Mr. Doyle's house, the curtains still drawn. I couldn't see him, but I felt him, always watching. The thought of breaking into his home terrified me, but the fear of doing nothing was worse. Jessie was already moving toward the door. "We don't have much time. If he knows you're onto him." My heart hammered as we crossed the street. The sun had begun to set, casting long shadows over the quiet pavement. Every window felt like an eye. Every leaf that rustled felt like a warning. "I can't believe we're doing this," I whispered. "He's probably in the backyard," Jessie murmured. "Working in the garden. If we're fast, we'll be in and out." We crept around the back of the house. It looked so normal, too normal. Jessie pulled a small tool from her bag and made quick work of the lock. The door creaked open with a groan that echoed through the thick, heavy air. Inside, everything was in place. Worn armchairs, a floral couch, but there was something off. No photos, no mementos, no signs of a life lived. Just silence, just control. "Where is he?" I whispered. Jessie held up a hand, motioning for quiet. She moved down the hallway, scanning every corner, every shadow. I followed, my breath shallow, my chest tight. Then upstairs, a soft click. A door opening. Mr. Doyle was home. His footsteps creaked across the floorboards above. Slow, purposeful. My body went rigid. I locked eyes with Jessie, her expression mirroring the fear clawing at my insides. "Move," she hissed, already guiding us toward the basement stairs. We slipped down into the darkness, every step a betrayal of our presence. The basement was cold, musty, filled with old furniture, boxes, forgotten things. But it gave us cover. Jessie's eyes darted through the gloom. "He has to have a hiding place," she whispered. "Something tucked away." I gripped the flashlight, the beam slicing through the dark. We moved carefully, avoiding every loose floorboard. Every sound above was a dagger of dread. We didn't have long. Then I saw it. A door, half hidden behind boxes of decorations and blankets. It didn't match the rest of the basement. It didn't belong. "This is it," I whispered. A wave of cold air rolled out as I stepped toward it. And I knew we were about to uncover the truth. She said it in a whisper, barely audible. Her hand hovered over the small door's handle. But before she could open it, the footsteps above us suddenly stopped. Silence. I held my breath, straining to hear anything. Movement, creaking, a breath, but nothing. Had he heard us? Then, without warning, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a narrow, dimly lit hallway beyond. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. This wasn't just a basement. It was a gateway into something far darker, something that had remained hidden for far too long. We stepped inside, our footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust coating the floor. The air grew colder with each step, the smell of rot growing stronger, more pungent. At the end of the hallway, we found it. A cramped room lined with shelves. And on those shelves, things I couldn't fully comprehend. Personal items, jewelry, clothing, books, photographs of women. Women who had vanished from the neighborhood in the 80s. Their faces were frozen in time, trapped in the faded gloss of old photographs. Mr. Doyle's victims. The walls were covered in newspaper clippings. Some I had seen before in the crawl space, but here they were paired with something far worse. In the center of the room stood an old wooden chair, worn and stained, and strapped to it was a mannequin. Only, it wasn't a normal mannequin. Its face was disturbingly lifelike. The skin looked real, too smooth, too human. It was an effigy, a trophy, a grotesque tribute to the women he had taken. The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. Mr. Doyle hadn't just been hiding in the walls. He had been hunting, collecting, and I was next. Jessie grabbed my arm. "We have to go. Now." We turned, but the moment we moved toward the basement stairs, we heard it. The creak of a door upstairs, the soft tread of footsteps descending. He was coming. Mr. Doyle was in the basement. I didn't think. I acted. I hurled the flashlight across the room. It clattered into the darkness, echoing off the walls. For a moment, everything paused. Mr. Doyle's footsteps faltered. "Now!" Jessie hissed. We ran, bolting up the stairs, our breath loud and ragged, hearts pounding in unison. We burst from the basement just as the door at the top of the staircase opened. I caught the murmur of his voice, low, calm, predatory. We didn't stop. We flew out the back door, sprinting across the yard, the cold night air slicing against our skin. I glanced back once and saw him, Mr. Doyle, standing in the window, watching. He didn't chase us. He didn't need to. He knew we couldn't escape what we'd seen. That night, I returned to the crawl space, the one he used to spy, to stalk, and rigged it shut, trapping him in the very walls he had used to terrorize others. Then I set the place ablaze. Flames lit the night sky. I watched it all burn, his secrets, his trophies, his life. The police would find the remains. They'd find the journals, the clippings, the evidence. But Mr. Doyle would never hurt anyone again. I left Edgefield, moved far away, left the memories behind. But I never stopped checking the walls. Not once. Because I knew, deep down, there's always another house. Another neighbor. Another secret waiting to be uncovered. It was December of 1999 when she infested our quiet Midwestern home. My father called to me from downstairs. I assumed it was dinner time, but when I saw him, standing at the bottom of the stairs with his hand raised to stop me, I knew something was wrong. His face was pale, his eyes wide with panic. "I want you to listen to me very carefully," he said. My heart started to race. "It's important you keep your eyes on me. You're going to notice someone else in the house. But you must ignore her, no matter what." I almost laughed. My 12-year-old brain couldn't make sense of what he was saying. Was this a joke? "She'll whisper things, follow you, try anything to get your attention. It's going to be hard, son. But you must never interact with her. I promise. She'll leave, but only if you pretend she doesn't exist. And whatever you do, don't think about her. Not even for a second." I had so many questions, but I was too frightened, too confused to ask them. "Okay, Dad," I managed to stammer. "Good. Come downstairs. It's time for dinner. Hurry." He glanced over his shoulder. "I've made her stronger just by telling you, but I had to. I couldn't risk you seeing her by accident. Trust me. Stay focused." He backpedaled toward the kitchen, never taking his eyes off me. I descended the stairs, my eyes locked on his. I felt the temperature drop, sharp and sudden. As I reached the first floor, the air stank of something sickly and sour, like the time a raccoon died in the wall and filled the house with rot. My sister sat at the table across from me, her head bowed, eyes fixed on an empty porcelain plate. My mother pulled a casserole from the oven. Her face was puffy and red, her eyes glassy from crying. I tried to stay focused on my family, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw her, a blurred, hunched figure, dark matted hair, skin a sickly shade of gray. She stood just behind my sister. The warmth that had once filled our home was gone. My sister grabbed my knee under the table and whispered, "You can see her too?" I nodded. "Quiet," our father snapped. The woman crept forward, each wet, crackling step filling me with dread. The smell grew stronger, thicker. She placed a withered hand on my sister's shoulder. My sister flinched, eyes wide with terror. I immediately looked down, avoiding her completely. My mother served dinner, pretending nothing was wrong. I saw my father clutching my sister's hand under the table, steadying her, keeping her from breaking. The woman stood there through the entire meal, whispering, barely audible, like white noise creeping through the walls. And that's how we lived. For months. Even when we left the house, she followed us. In the rearview mirror, on the side of the road, always just behind. My parents banned visitors. They wouldn't let us sleep at friends' houses. We whispered about her only when absolutely necessary, if she wasn't too close. We came to understand her, this parasite of attention. She infected one household at a time, invisible to outsiders unless they knew, unless they had been told. That's how she spreads. Through thought, through acknowledgement. My father told us he was the reason she returned. Back in the 70s, his sister had brought her in from another home. Somehow he'd let his thoughts drift back to her. And that was all it took. She came back. We all suffered. But my mother bore the worst of it. She was home alone with her for hours every day. Everything changed one snowy night in February. We had just finished dinner. My mother went to bed early. And there, on the edge of the bed, she sat, watching. My mother, the parasite. I heard her screaming from the bedroom. "Leave us alone," she shrieked. My father sprinted upstairs to stop her. That was the last time I ever saw my mother. All that remained was a pool of blood soaking into the white carpet. She was gone, and the woman was still there. In the weeks that followed, the woman whispered to me. She promised I could see my mother again. All I had to do was look and ask how. But I never did. The reason I'm telling you this now is because I saw her again this morning, after 18 years. I can't afford to lose my wife and children to the parasite. I need you to think about her. Think about her dark hair, her ashen skin. Think about her in your home so that she may leave mine. You're already infected. Eventually, you'll see her too. You must ignore her. It's the only way to survive. I'm so sorry. The drive. I've always found comfort in being alone. Maybe it's the silence. The stillness. My name is Tessa, and I'm a law student. A title, really, but not who I am. I have ambitions, big ones. The kind that keep me up at night, mind racing through statutes and hypothetical arguments. Still, at the end of each day, I retreat to my small, quiet apartment, a rare pocket of calm in a city full of chaos. Everything changed the day I found a plain envelope in my mailbox. No return address, no writing, just a USB drive inside. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to throw it out. But curiosity, insidious and irresistible, won. I plugged it in, expecting a virus. Prank, maybe. What played instead was grainy footage. Early 2000s, maybe. A woman walking down a street. Ordinary at first, until she passed the camera. The angle was strange, as if someone were watching from a hidden corner. And the backdrop? Familiar. Too familiar. My neighborhood. My street. My building. My heart started to race. The woman stopped, glanced around, then continued. The camera followed her like a silent shadow. The next video was worse. She was inside an apartment. Her apartment. My apartment. I watched her go about her day. The camera was hidden somewhere inside. Same layout. Same furniture. My home. The final clip showed her asleep in bed. The door creaked open. A masked figure entered, slow and deliberate. The camera shifted to catch every move, every step. Then the words appeared on the screen. Guess who's next? I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking. Was this real? A sick joke? But deep down I knew. It wasn't. The investigation. I called the police. Officer Hernandez didn't sound too convinced, but he promised to send someone. When they arrived, I showed them everything. No fingerprints. No sign of tampering. Nothing to trace. You're sure you don't know this woman? Hernandez asked, showing me the footage on his tablet. I didn't. But the fact she had been recorded outside my building was enough to make my skin crawl. We'll look into it. Just keep your doors locked. Stay alert. Felt like a script. Like they didn't believe me. That night, I woke up at 3:15 a.m. My laptop clicked. A video began playing on its own. This time it was of me. The camera was hidden in my bedroom, capturing me as I slept. In the grainy footage, the masked figure entered. Same movements, same silence. Standing at the foot of my bed, watching. The screen faded to black. Then the message. I'm already inside. I was frozen. Every instinct screamed to run, to scream. But I couldn't move. The doors were locked. Windows sealed. Still, he'd been inside. The police wouldn't help. I knew it. So I started investigating myself. I scoured every inch of my apartment. Nothing. Then I reviewed the videos again. In the reflections, mirrors, windows, I noticed subtle shadows. Outlines of something beyond the camera's reach. The killer was close. In the building. I accessed the building's security logs using my university credentials. One name stood out. Mark Turner. No photo. No details. Just a tenant. Apartment directly below mine. He had no real online presence. Just the occasional blurry post. A dropout. A ghost. And now my neighbor. It all fit. The stalking. The silence. I had to know the truth. The confrontation. I waited until Mark left his apartment one evening. He slipped into the night. I followed only far enough to know he was gone. Then I went inside. His door was unlocked. The apartment was stale, dark, unfurnished, barely lived in. Just mismatched chairs, a dusty table, and books that hadn't been touched in months. But the glow from the back room caught my eye. His bedroom door was ajar. Inside, rows of monitors lit the dark. Dozens of screens, each one showing different people in their homes. Some sleeping, some brushing their teeth, some unaware of the figure lurking just behind them. Then I saw myself live. On one of the screens, I was standing in Mark's apartment. Another camera was behind me. I turned,